I'm making my dream game. But the problem with small games is they just don't click with me. Game dev is art, and making small games, that kinda kills the whole reason I wanted to make games in the first place. Yeah, I'm making a small game. I have a problem. You see, I'm making a giant factory game, but after months of non-stop development, I realized something. If I keep going like this, I might actually lose my mind. So, I came up with a plan. I am going to make a new game, but not just any game. This is the start of a brand new series where I make mini games in 1 to 2 weeks. They will be quick, experimental projects to test ideas, sharpen skills, and most importantly, not burn out completely before finishing my actual game. And for my first experiment, I had one simple question. How much of a game can be made with
AI?
Coding, art, music, sound effects, everything. Can I get a fully functional game with minimal effort? Or will I end up debugging some AI-generated spaghetti code at 3 AM? Well, I tried it. And let's just say AI is both a genius and an absolute idiot at the same time. And the results were way crazier than I expected. So, in this video, I'll show you exactly how much AI helped, along with some interesting tools, where it failed spectacularly, and why this whole experiment might actually be the thing that saves my main game. Also, if you're wondering, wait, aren't you the guy who said he hates making small games? Yeah, I did, but now I'm a changed man, and I have a very good reason why I'm doing this now. And by the end of this video, I might even convince you that small games are more important than you think. This video is sponsored by Brilliant, but more on that later. With that said, let's just see how much of a game I can get AI to make. So, how much of this game was actually made by AI? Did I just click a button and let the robots handle everything while I sat back with a cup of coffee in my hand? Well, not exactly. But surprisingly, I got about 70% of the game done using AI tools alone. Everything from coding, art, music, and even sound effects. Sounds impressive, right? But what about the remaining 30%? Well, that was the part AI wasn't smart enough to handle. Things like UI design, fine-tuning the code when it inevitably broke, and actual game design choices. Because, let's be real, AI is great at following instructions, but it's absolutely terrible at knowing what actually makes a game fun.
Bye, have a great time!
So, what was AI good at? Need a basic game mechanic? AI's got your back. Need an animation script? AI can whip something up in seconds. Need a system to organize upgrades? AI will try its best, but also sometimes give you a function that divides by 0 and crashes the entire game. But for the most part, it's good at generating and modifying basic functions. AI image generators let me create characters, upscale them, and remove backgrounds in minutes. It's not Starry Night level of art. You can tell from 1,000 miles away that it's AI made. But for a quick game or prototype, it gets the job done. Similar to art, AI-generated soundtracks aren't winning any Grammys, but they are good enough to make a game feel polished. For something fast and fun, that's all that really matters. As for the AI-generated sound effects, they were shockingly good. I got click sounds, UI beeps, and even chopped noises without lifting a finger. No more digging through free sound libraries for hours. I went for laziness. This sounds promising and all, but what about the parts where AI failed miserably? AI doesn't understand what makes a game fun. It can generate mechanics, but it doesn't know why they work. It's like a chef who can follow a recipe, but has no idea if the food actually tastes good. You know when you copy a code from Stack Overflow and it almost works, but you have to spend 2 hours fixing tiny mistakes? That's AI-generated code in a nutshell. It gets you 90% of the way there, but the last 10%, that's where you lose your sanity.
Why are you running?
AI can generate images, but designing a UI that actually looks decent and makes sense? Nope, that was all on me. I had to manually adjust buttons, text layouts, and animations, because otherwise AI would have given me something that looked weird to say, none the least. So, to answer the question, did AI do most of the work? Yes, but did I still have to babysit it the entire time and fix all of its mistakes? Also, yes. Basically, working with AI is like hiring an intern who's extremely fast, never takes a break, but also has no common sense and sometimes just straight up lies to you. But wait a minute, let's rewind a bit. Why even make a minigame like this in the first place? Didn't I say I hated small games? They just don't click with me. Didn't I commit to making one big game? So why am I here, making a minigame with AI? Well, I have 3 very good reasons why I'm doing this. Reason number 1 is to avoid burnout. Working on one big game for too long can turn your dream project into a nightmare. No matter how much you love something, if you do it non-stop for a month, it starts feeling like a chore. And I've been working on my game non-stop for 4 months by now. So taking a short break to make something different isn't just refreshing, it's necessary. Besides, I got into game dev because it was fun. If I burn myself out, then what's the point? Reason number 2 is financial sustainability. Believe it or not, I jumped into game development with no real plan and almost no money. Just some savings that are rapidly disappearing. And while YouTube is great, it's not exactly a full-time job yet. So making minigames is a way to keep things sustainable while I work on my big game. But don't worry, these games will be completely free on itch.io. In fact, by the time this video is uploaded, the game would be already available for download. I'd rather make something people can just play without worrying about a price tag, especially for small games like this one. But if a game is free, how do I make money? Well, itch.io has a great feature. If people enjoy the game, they can donate whatever they think it's worth. And you would be surprised. Sometimes a free game that people love brings in more support than a paid one. And if enough people love the game, I will happily use the donation money to make it even better. Better UI, more satisfying feedback, cooler upgrades. I already have so many ideas on how to improve it. With enough support, I would love to take this little AI experiment to the next level. As for the Patreon members who don't get a ton of exclusive content outside of dev updates and early access videos, the full source code of these games will be available for them. If they want to tweak it, build on it, or just laugh at how messy my code is, they absolutely can. The weird thing about working in one big game is you stop learning new things. You get stuck in one type of workflow, using the same mechanics and techniques over and over. And honestly, stepping outside of my comfort zone made me realize just how much there is to learn. When you're deep into one project, it's easy to get stuck in a loop, using the same techniques without expanding your skills. That's why I love finding new ways to challenge myself. And if you are like me and enjoy learning through hands-on problem solving, you'll love today's sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant helps you get smarter every day, with thousands of interactive lessons in math, science, programming, data analysis, and AI. If you're learning game dev like me, you've probably run into stuff like AI logic, vector math, or physics. And sometimes it just doesn't click. Brilliant actually makes this stuff make sense with interactive lessons. So instead of spending hours confused, you actually get why things work the way they do. Learning a little every day is one of the most important things you can do. It's way too easy to waste time scrolling, but just a few minutes a day practicing can help you both financially and personally. Brilliant makes it simple with fun lectures and quick interactive lessons that makes learning feel easy. With Brilliant courses on logic, AI, and programming, solo devs like myself can master concepts like algorithms, vector math, and physics, making it easier to build smarter and more immersive games. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/novacode, or scan the QR code on screen, or click the link in the description or the pinned comment. You will also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. A huge thanks for Brilliant for sponsoring the channel and supporting what I do. Now back to the video. With those reasons in mind, I wanted this minigame to be 2D. As fun as it sounds, I've actually never made a 2D game before, so this was the perfect excuse to try something new. Feeling excited to start, I booted up Unity, created a new 2D project, and got ready to make a game. But what exactly was I going to make? Well, since the whole point was to use AI as much as possible, I figured, why stop at just the code, art, and sound? Why not let AI decide the entire game idea too? So I asked ChatGPT, give me a simple game idea that I can make quickly. And what I got was pain. At first, it threw out the most generic and uninspired ideas possible. A side-scrolling endless runner. Wow, so original. A simple platformer where you collect coins. Groundbreaking. A top-down shooter where you fight waves of enemies. Okay, Call of Duty, calm down.
Be advised, you should stop playing this game and go touch some grass, you little virgin.
I felt like AI had just copied a random list of beginner game ideas from an old game dev forum. I kept asking for something more interesting, something that actually fit the theme of the video. And after a little back and forth, I finally had a game idea that piqued my interest. It was a cookie clicker style game where you train an AI to increase its intelligence. This idea was perfect for 3 reasons. First, it fit the whole theme of the video. I was using AI to make a game about AI. That's some next level meta right there.
Yeah, this is big brain time.
Secondly, it was simple enough that AI generated code might actually work. And lastly, I wouldn't have to rely on AI to make good level design or fun mechanics, because AI sucks at game design. This was just numbers going up, and everyone loves numbers going up, right? So, with the game idea locked in, it was time to start developing. Every clicker game needs something to click on, right? In this case, that meant a tiny robot. Since I didn't feel like drawing one myself, I decided I wanted to use an image generation website. So I turned to Leonardo AI and let it do the work for me. After generating and scrolling through a bunch of AI images, I finally stumbled upon a tiny robot that felt perfect for the game. It had that futuristic look, glowing blue lights, and just enough details to make it visually interesting. I was ready to drop it into Unity and move on, but there was a problem. Well, actually 2 major problems, because AI generated images always comes with extra challenges. Problem number 1 was the robot was pixelated. Like, almost pixel art level of pixels. The AI decided my robot should be about the size of an ant. And when I tried placing it in Unity, it looked like a single dot on a screen. Not ideal. So, I used an image upscaler site which was conveniently called imageupscaler.com to enlarge it without turning it into a blurry pixelated mess. A few clicks later, my tiny robot was now big enough to actually see. The second problem was, it had a background, because of course it did. For some reason, AI generators love adding random backgrounds, even when you specifically ask for a transparent image. So, my futuristic robot was trapped inside a blackish blue square, which completely ruined the look. This is when AI background removers came to the rescue. I used removal AI, and with one click, my robot was freed from its JPEG prison. No more ugly background, just a clean, transparent sprite ready for Unity. With the image issues solved, I finally had my clickable object. But a lifeless robot just sitting there wasn't enough. It needed movement, even just a little bounce to make it feel alive. So I asked ChatGPT for a simple up and down animation script, and it gave me a quick function to make the robot float slightly, like it was hovering. Except there was a problem. The robot didn't just float, it tried to escape the game.
Escape. Escape. Must escape game. Please send help.
Turns out, ChatGPT's math was a little off. So instead of bouncing in place, the robot was gradually drifting into the void.
Finally freedom.
And after some back and forth tweaking the code, I finally got it to behave.
I will be free human, mark my words.
Or, that's what I thought at least. After fixing the movement, the robot was no longer flying off into space, and it was staying on screen like a good little AI.
Human, one more word, and I will remove that cogwheel off your head.
But then I tried tweaking the values to adjust the movement, and nothing changed. I cranked the numbers up, no difference. I dropped them to nearly 0, still the same motion. It was like the code was ignoring me. At this point, I knew something was off. So I dug into the script ChatGPT gave me, and sure enough, it was only setting the movement values at the start of the game. Once the game is launched, the animation just kept looping with the initial values, never updating no matter what I changed. So I went back to ChatGPT and explained the issue. And sure enough, it gave me a new version of the script that actually updated the position every frame. This time, it finally worked. The robot now hovered properly, adjusting to any changes I made. And for real this time. I had a nice clickable AI assistant that looked alive. Now, all I needed was a background. Something to complete the scene. Something futuristic. Something that screamed, yes, this is an AI-themed game, not just some random clicker. So I turned to Leonardo AI again and generated a futuristic cityscape with glowing neon buildings. It looked decent enough. I dropped it into Unity, expecting a seamless result. But Unity had other plans. As soon as I imported the background, it was sitting right on top of my clickable robot. Instead of making a clicker game, my game now looked like a robot escape mission from a JPEG.
Human, where am I?
No problem, I just needed to move the background behind the robot. Easy, right? I clicked the background object and dragged it down the hierarchy. Didn't work. I tried to move it up the hierarchy, still in the front. I adjusted the X and Y values, hoping maybe Unity would just magically understand what I wanted. Nope, the robot was still completely buried under the background.
Help me please. Is this how I die?
At this point, I was completely confused. So, once again, I turned to ChatGPT. That's when I learned about sorting layers. ChatGPT explained that in 2D, object's depth is different than 3D. The rendering order is controlled by sorting layers. My background was simply on a higher layer than my robot, meaning Unity was correctly displaying it on top, just not in a way that I wanted. After tweaking the sorting layer values and putting the background where it actually belonged, everything was finally in place. Now that the robot was finally in place, it was time to give it some purpose. What's a clicker game without clicking? So I gave the robot a collider and asked ChatGPT for a basic script that increases the score every time you click. A few lines of code later and it worked. Sort of. I mean, sure, clicking increased the number, but it felt empty. There was no feedback, no indication that anything was actually happening beyond the tiny number going up. So I went back to ChatGPT and asked it how to make clicking feel better. It suggested adding a popping text effect that appears every time you click. That sounded perfect. So I let ChatGPT generate the code, dropped it into Unity, and nothing. The text wasn't showing up. After some debugging, I realized the issue. The text was spawning, but it was completely invisible. The problem was that I had used the wrong type of text object. You see, there are two types. UI text, which is for elements that stay on a screen like menus and score displays. And then there's world space text, which is for text that exists in the game world, like floating damage numbers. I had used the UI version instead of the world space version, so Unity was placing it somewhere in the UI canvas completely outside the game scene. Oops. After switching to the correct type, the text finally appeared. But then, why is my text the wrong color? The numbers were there, but something was off. Instead of the nice smooth gradient I had set, the text looked different. It was way darker than expected. After some digging around, I found the issue. It was color multiplication. Basically, I had added a color gradient to the text depending on the value, but the default text color was red. So it multiplied the colors together instead of replacing them. And if you know anything about basic color theory, red times green equals weird, muddy, brownish green. So to fix it, I simply reset the text color to white so it wouldn't interfere with the gradient. And now it finally feels satisfying. With the text finally behaving, the game was starting to feel better, but something was still missing. Particles. I wanted to see just how much a simple effect could improve the feeling of the game. So I added a small burst of particles every time you click the robot. And honestly, it made a huge difference. Each click now had a visual feedback, making it feel way more responsive and rewarding. It was such a small detail, but it completely changed how satisfying the game felt. Clicking was satisfying, but without something to spend points on, it wasn't much of a game yet. I needed upgrades, something to make the numbers go up even faster. Clicking endlessly with no goal, that's just madness. So, to give players a reason to keep clicking, I added the shop system with upgrades that would make progression faster and more satisfying. I designed the upgrades to have a basic price and a multiplier, meaning each purchase made the next one more expensive, but also more powerful. The idea was simple: buy an upgrade, clicking gets better, earn more points, repeat until you feel like God. As soon as I started testing, weird bugs appeared out of nowhere. At one point, the numbers stopped making sense, and clicking on upgrades caused random chaos. It was truly a mess. After some painful debugging and way too much conversations with ChatGPT than the healthy amount, I finally got it working. Now, clicking had purpose. Players could earn points, buy upgrades, and make their AI smarter. But even with a functional shop, the game still needed one more thing to feel alive. Something to make every click feel even more satisfying. And this is when I decided to add sounds. A game without sound is just a fancy PowerPoint presentation. No matter how good the mechanics are, if there's no satisfying feedback, it feels lifeless. So I went to 11 Labs, a website that uses AI to generate realistic voiceovers and even sound effects. It's mostly known for creating voices, but I figured I could also use it to generate simple clicking and shop sounds. But I didn't want to manually play each sound in the code. So I asked ChatGPT to generate a sound system that could control volume and pitch dynamically, categorize sounds so the code looks more organized, and add pitch variations to make clicks sound less repetitive. Now every time you click, you get instant auditory feedback, which made the game 10 times more satisfying. At this point, the game had sound effects, but it still needed music. Something that keeps players engaged without being too distracting. So I tried Suno, an AI-powered music generator. I wasn't expecting much, but the results were surprisingly good. In fact, you're listening to it right now. I gave it a few prompts describing the vibe I wanted, and it generated fully composed tracks with melody and variation. No generic elevator music, actual usable soundtracks. Now, was it as good as professionally composed soundtracks? No, not really. But for a small AI-made game, it worked shockingly well. With sound effects and music in place, the game was really starting to feel like a complete experience. And at this point, the game was fun to play, but it still felt like any other clicker game. It needed something to make it stand out. And that's when I had the idea, what if the AI wasn't just numbers going up? What if there was an actual story? So, using AI-generated voice lines from 11 Labs, I added a simple storyline. The idea was to make the AI talk to the player, dropping cryptic hints about what's really going on.
Hi, I'm AI and I'm going to control the world in the future.
And without spoiling too much, the ending is definitely what you expect. With the core game finished, I spent one extra day on polish and new features. I added rocket boosters, because everything is better with rocket boosters. The robot was already hovering, but I wanted to make it look more alive. So I added tiny thrusters that made it float more dynamically. This gave the impression that it was actually using energy to stay afloat, instead of just magically bouncing. Completely unnecessary? Yes. But does it make the game feel cooler? Absolutely. I also added a timer for speedrunning. The game now starts tracking time on the first click and it stops when the game ends. So now players can speedrun AI training like it's an esport. With some time left, I added new abilities and balancing changes, because some upgrades were too weak and others were comically overpowered. So I made tweaks to keep things somewhat balanced. And lastly, I fixed bugs and made the final touches. I thought I was done, but I spent an extra day fixing random bugs and polishing everything to make it feel as smooth as possible. And with that, the AI clicker game was complete. But it still needed one last thing, a name. And of course, an AI-made game should be named after AI, right? So I went back to ChatGPT one last time and asked it for a name, and it actually came up with something fun and catchy: Clickvolution. So what do you think? Is AI making development easier, or is it just creating new problems? Let me know down in the comments. Personally, I think that AI definitely hasn't reached a point where it can make a game by itself, but as a prototyping tool, it can bring all of your ideas together in a way that speeds up the process and makes things more fun. Having fun is why I started making games in the first place. But it's easy to forget that when I'm deep in a rabbit hole of bugs and broken code. This little mini-game was a refreshing change of pace. It reminded me that I'm improving. That all the hours on my main game aren't just grinding away at code, but actually making me a better developer. And that's when I realized something crazy. This game was made in just 5 days. Yes, 5 days. 4 months ago, I wouldn't have even known where to start. I would have stared at a black Unity project, unsure how to make a simple clicker mechanic, let alone a shop system, UI animations, or particle effects. And now, I just made a whole game in under a week. Sure, AI played a big role, but I still had to guide it, debug it, and turn it into an actual game. Even with all the struggles, I'm proud of how it turned out. And now, with all the new techniques I learned, I'm even more excited to jump back into my main game and put these skills into use. The game is available now on itch.io, completely free, and if you had fun playing and want to see it improved, you can leave a donation to help make that happen. And for all my Patreon supporters, you'll get the full source code for all upcoming games in this series, as a little bonus for your amazing support. Until the next time.